thank you so much for making the time.
Good morning, and thank you very much for having us.
Why are these economic and social measures, as announced by President Ramaphosa, critical, especially now in the light of the coronavirus pandemic?
Absolutely critical, because we've known for some time that the South African population is generally under or unemployed. You would know that government has been taking care of the population up to age 18 in terms of children, and the population over 60 in terms of adult elderly people. But the population between 19 and 59 is what you might call the missing middle. And most of these people have been living, if they are unemployed, in the periphery of the economy in some way, depending on the ecosystem of the economy. Now, when that whole economy has ground to a halt, it means there's so much more hunger and starvation. I mean, remember, think about the woman who irons twice a week in some home and who now can no longer do that. The gardener who goes and does gardening 3 days a week, that can no longer do that. The people that sell in the street corn or something like that, all these people, the car guards, and all these people have got nothing at all. People that work at the saloon, these have now been shut down. People in the, hospitality industry on the periphery thereof. People at the airport pushing, truck bags and so on. So all of these people need the assistance. If they don't, they will not only, we cannot afford to have these people starving in our society. And so I think the government has done something unimaginable, very bold to do this, and we congratulate them for this. But also, we've been seeing that people are queuing for food parcels, and the SACC has been advocating for cash transfers, food vouchers in a way that ensures the dignity of the people and also prevents any possibility of corruption. And we're very glad that the government, with the president's announcement, has made this possible. We're also concerned that in many cases, businesses will be, retrenching and firing staff. And what the government has done is very good, because it enables businesses to keep their employees. There are economies that depend on a very good relationship between management and the employee. And that happens best if the people stay for a long time in their job. They don't get retrenched because of COVID, and then they let go. So that after COVID, it's difficult to rebuild. And so we appreciate all of this. But I want you to know that the SACC has actually been building a pastoral plan that enables churches on the ground to what we call local ecumenical action network, to identify people that are hard hit so that they can surface those people for government support. But also, it also recognizes that in many homes, because of this lockdown, there is an increase in domestic violence. The man who doesn't have his tobacco, he doesn't have his liquor, is getting all his frustrations onto his family, his children, and his wife. And for this reason, these local ecumenical action networks must have what we call family support unit, so that there is those trusted people, but mainly women in the local community that everybody knows. They can send a WhatsApp to them to say, hey, things are difficult here at home. And then the local church people can then communicate that upwards, and we can then get law enforcement services, maybe even just to evacuate the victims and give them some place else. And churches are making themselves available to support in terms of care centers and receive people such as these. And so it's going to be a difficult time, but also we know that the president has said this cannot be undone very quickly, and therefore we expect that there will be a continuation of the lockdown in some way, which will have an impact on people's movements, on worship life, and the churches are beginning to look at how best they can deal with the new reality into the long term. But we appreciate that the most important thing about COVID is keeping the distance and making sure that people do the right thing, and we'll try and do as best we can to save lives.
Bishop, you've touched on several important issues, and we'll try to unpack a few of them as we go along our conversation. But at the beginning, you pointed out that the president reaching out to the South African community touches on aspect of society that up to now have been totally ignored, and people who really need assistance. But we've just been speaking to the Democratic Nursing Organization of South Africa, DENOSA, who feel that while giving to one, the president is taking from another. They feel aggrieved that the president didn't reach out to health workers, and they feel that they are being ignored. For instance, they're supposed to have gotten a salary increase on the 1st of April, and that has been put aside as efforts are all being put in the fight against COVID-19. How do we balance out provision of assistance to the entire South African society?
We don't know the details, but we know that 20 billion has been allocated to health. And I think the question might be how that money is going to be used by because they said they are giving 20 billion to combat COVID. The breakdown of that, how it relates to employees in that sector, we do not know. And so I do not know if the president would necessarily have had to specifically mention the health workers, because there would have to be a breakdown of that. And I think I'm just guessing, that only the health department would be best placed to say exactly how they are using that. But I would hope that the health workers would be very well taken care of. I mean, these people are, they have the lifesavers. One of the concerns of the churches, particularly in the pastoral care, in the local medical action networks, is to look at what we call frontline workers. When a nurse or a doctor or any health worker leaves home, or a police person, or even a soldier leaves home to go to serve in this war, the family remains behind, very worried. They are concerned: is this person going to come back with the virus? Every day, this is a concern for the family. So there is a lot of trauma and psychological, trauma that people are experiencing. And I think it's happening also to clergy and ministers of religion who have to perform funerals. They leave their families, they've got to do this. And the SACC is also looking at how we can provide, if possible, some kind of, masks and protection equipment for ministers conducting funerals. All of these things mean that you have to care for those who are in the front lines. And I would hope that such fears are not fulfilled, and that indeed their hopes and aspirations are met.
Bishop, let me start off by apologizing, because I know we didn't prepare you for this, but you're a very important leader in society, and your kind of skills is something that's really needed at this moment, and would like to open the lines to our viewers to call in and perhaps take part in this conversation, if you don't mind, Bishop. The number is 078-799-4480. You're welcome to call us in and take part in this conversation we're having with Bishop Mpumlwana. But as we continue with our conversation, the South African Council of Churches is historically a very important institution in the life of South Africa. South Africa that was fighting against apartheid, and now a democratic South Africa. How do you see your role at this moment as we face this challenge?
The South African Council of Churches is essentially an organization of gospel-inspired social justice. That's what we do. A social justice that's gospel-inspired because Jesus said, I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. And we try to live up to that. It is for this reason that we campaigned against apartheid, that we actually campaigned for sanctions against the apartheid economy. But in the democratic era, our job is to make sure that social justice is experienced by all, and that's why we campaign for healing and reconciliation of our society, for economic transformation, for good governance, which is why we did the unburdening panel against corruption, so that there's good governance and that there is, in fact, I might even add, we're one of those that are campaigning for electoral, change, so that there's a different kind of accountability. But in the context of this COVID challenge, we are there to see to it that our congregations can become a source of comfort for communities in a way that enables for lives to be saved, for hunger to be averted, and for jobs to be secured. And we're looking beyond the COVID to say, in the rebuilding of our economy into the future, how shall we make sure that the excluded majority of South Africa are participating in a restructured economy, so that we don't have, again, this case where you've got 99% of South Africa's poverty concentrated in the so-called colored and African communities only, and that these communities must be given the space to participate in the economy effectively. This is now the post-COVID. Life can never be the same again in South Africa. And that is why the South African Council of Churches is wanting to make sure that there's a compact between business, labor, society, and government, that we should all together work for the kinds of things we should have done differently after 1994. The reason why this COVID is such a danger is that we've got a huge number of people that are vulnerable because of poverty. 55% of our population is living beyond poverty. They're below poverty line. And that makes them, therefore, vulnerable because they live with diets that do not promote their immunity. Secondly, we've got more than 7 million South Africans that are living with HIV and AIDS. We've got more than 300,000 South Africans that are living with TB. We in this country are worried because it's not the elderly that are more at stake. It is the whole of our society because of these things. And so we're trying as best we can to make sure that people take very serious these concerns. And that is why we believe if the health science people are telling us, stay at home, please, let's do that. This is a war situation. Let's try to do otherwise. Let's try to get out there. And that's why we are very happy that government provides the cash transfer so that people live within their neighborhoods and buy in the local shop. They don't have to go to the big supermarkets because there will be a cash transfer that enables them to buy from a spaza shop, and that in itself encourages the consistency of the local commercial infrastructure. The neighbors, these businesses must thrive.
Now, in announcing the grant, the president said poverty and food insecurity have deepened dramatically in the course of just a few weeks. To reach the most vulnerable families in the country, we've decided on a temporary 6-month coronavirus grant. Two concerns that have come out in relation to that grant, to some of the detail of that grant. One is that we just spoke to Black Sash now. They were saying the 350 rands threshold was too little, pleading with the president to take it to at least 1,000 rands. Another concern about whether the intended beneficiaries will be the ones getting these resources. Your thoughts here, Bishop, as we invite our viewers again to call us on 0787994480.
I would be the first to say that it is too little, and I would hope that we had the money. But of course, we are in the junk status economy. There is not much to go around. And my view is that the numbers of people we're talking about really probably are somewhere in the order of 20-25 million. If you think about this, we have between the ages of 15 to 64, we've got about just under 23 million people that are not active at all in the economy, that are not employed, that are nowhere. That's between 22 and 23 million people in the ages 15 to 64. Now, we would have had a number of maybe 2 to 3 million people that are now just been disengaged from the economy as a result of COVID, which takes your numbers to anywhere around 25 million. And so if you look at then the quantum in that context, it is nothing to sniff at. It is quite a bit that has to be taken into account. So I would say that to start off, the fact that we've got this grant lays the foundation. I know that it's called a COVID grant, which means at the end of the COVID campaign, that grant will not continue. And that makes sense from the point of view of the economy. But our belief is that this time should be used to think through how to absorb those people into the economy so that they don't become dependent on a 300 rand, which is really nothing in real terms. But that, in fact, during this time, we can be thinking about creative ways of ensuring a broader intake of people into the economy into the future. I think that's very important. This country has got so much poverty because people are not in the economy, and the economy has got to absorb them.
We're going to continue with this conversation. Bishop, we're going to just ask you to just hang 10 as we go to another story now. South Africa has recorded 170 more COVID-19 infections. That takes the total number of coronavirus cases to 3,000.